Your Money in Business is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you.
Just ahead, new tools for dealing with an old problem. Now a survival guide for dealing with impossible people. We all know a few of those. We spoke with John Patterson, the author of Rule Number 1, Crazy People Make You Crazy.
Well, I was 35 years of leadership, programmer, stereo salesman positions, and many of them led me to believe that there are crazy people in the world. So I actually made a list. And then as I became a partner with a big global consulting firm with a chief operating officer of a couple companies, I would quote from the list and say, well, this sounds like a rule number 7 to me. And people would say, John, let's see this list. And so once I retired last year, I thought, well, I think the world needs to hear about this list. So I actually wrote a book around the list.
So the reason to publish the book after you're retired is that nothing in it can hurt you, hurt your career at this point.
Well, all the names have been changed to protect the guilty. That's right.
And you don't, when talking about crazy people at work, you don't actually call them crazy people.
No. I think, well, first of all, everybody's crazy.
To some degree, you may be right.
So we're not talking about clinically crazy people. We're talking about everyday crazy people. We have a concept called the seesaw, that basically everybody's on a seesaw, and everybody spends some amount of time up in the air. So we're all crazy. But some crazier than others, and it's a matter of dealing with them. I think people are probably reading this book saying, John, I can remember times when you were pretty crazy, and we had to deal with you. But it's about working it through, and so we call people Rule Number 1. And
so this is a Rule Number 1 person or group of people?
Or situation, yeah. Institutions get into Rule Number 1 situations.
I think I may know some Rule Number 1 people, and I like these Rule Number 1 people. Mm-hmm. Why are they troublesome at work?
Well, because they're not, probably most of all, they're not logical. They don't remember what we said yesterday. They don't follow through. They've got they live in a little different world than we do. So magically they tend to get in control of situations. They'll have their hands on the most critical parts of a computer program or a system or whatever, and just fate will tend to put them right in the middle of everything. And
is there a prototypical Rule Number 1 person? Is there, without naming names?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Is there an example of somebody
Sure.
that just fits it to a T?
Well, I think in Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is called Count the Bricks. And the story behind that is you have a contractor, and he's going to lay some bricks for you, and he's got a big pile of bricks behind him, and he's laid about 4 bricks. And you walk up to him and say, so how's it going? He goes, well, I'm 90% done. And you go, well, 90% done? How can you be 90% done? And there are people like that will consistently ignore the reality of the subject and tell you they're 90% done.
Now, why does somebody tell you they're 90% done? Because in a workplace situation, people tend to want to minimize expectations. This project is a lot tougher, more involved than we ever thought it would be.
Most people don't. Most people don't.
Really?
No, most people always take the high, want good things to happen. They'll say, oh, sure, everything's easy, and good things happen just around the corner. I mean, that's part of the problem. People are too optimistic about what's happening, and they don't know, they don't recognize the reality of the situation.
You wrote about coin flips, Freudian coin flips. What's that about?
Freudian coin flip is when you think you have one of these situations, to put it in context of this situation, you say, is this guy crazy or not? Am I in a Rule Number 1 situation? My wife came up with recognized a system where you flip a coin, and you call it heads or tails, and you let go and you see how you feel about it. And then you make your decision based on how you feel about the situation. So you say heads. I think heads is crazy, and it comes up with tails, and you go, how do I feel about that? Do you think that's true or not? So it's a nice mechanism for making decisions.
It helps you find what you really think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Half of the book, you told me, is about diagnosing these Rule Number 1 situations, and the other half is about dealing with it. Give us some advice. I mean, what have you learned, maybe the hard way through business, that you wish you had known a few decades ago?
Well, maybe 2 of them are First of all, the obvious rules, rule number 8, which is if it feels good, don't say it. So a lot of times people will say, I want to tell that guy off, and they do. And boy, nothing good can come of that. So if the reason you're telling somebody is your own personal emotion, don't do it. I think ultimately rule number 10 says it's never too late to do the right thing. Either ethically, morally, project management-wise, it's never too late to stop and do the right thing.
You wrote something to the effect of the first person on paper wins.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, you know, the funny story is the story that illustrates it is Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus, this isn't the United States of Columbus, this is the United States of America. Christopher Americo Vespucci wrote it down, and so he got the credit for the whole thing. So the fact is if you be the person to write things down, that will become fact and truth. Now again, you're in your honor to do it right, but when you're dealing with people that did we have a meeting yesterday, yes or no, what did we say? If you're the person who documented that meeting, wrote down what we said, you'll control the situation. You say, I have it here written down that we actually did say that. You
wrote the book for a business audience, I guess, but does a lot of this apply to personal situations?
I'm not sure. I think it's a lot easier. Personal situations are a lot harder than business situations. So we'll see as time progresses. I did have a reviewer who was a psychiatrist, and he was already saying, this feels like kids dealing with teenagers. So I'm not sure I can tell you how to deal with your mother-in-law.
So there could be a second book at some point.
It could be a second book. My daughter and I are thinking about working on an edition for millennials. I didn't think it would be for them, but they really seem to be taken to it. So a little tweaking might make it for them.
The book is Rule Number 1, Crazy People Make You Crazy, at Work edition, only available on Amazon.
Right.
So remember that ahead of the Christmas season. And I should note that John Patterson happens to also be a member of the MPT Foundation right. Board of Directors. John, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Jeff.
And when we come back, the impact of international markets on the U.S. and Maryland.